What if a single moment could shatter your entire world? What if you discovered the person you saw every single day, but never truly saw, was living a life of quiet desperation? This is the story of a man who had everything, and a woman who, it seemed, had nothing. He'd built an empire of glass and steel, but his heart was encased in ice. His name was Lucas Harding, a powerful billionaire, and her name was Maya, his maid. He thought he knew her, but she was a complete stranger. But in the pouring rain, right outside his own mansion, they would both discover what it really means to be rich. A single, heart-wrenching moment was about to set off a chain reaction that would change him, and her, forever. Section 1, The World of Lucas Harding. Lucas Harding moved through the world like he owned it, and in many ways, he did. His name was a brand, a synonym for ruthless success. His days weren't just scheduled, they were engineered. A sequence of high-stakes meetings, calculated risks, and billion-dollar decisions. He lived in a sprawling mansion that felt less like a home and more like a monument to himself. It was a place of sharp angles, polished marble, and huge, empty spaces. The silence inside those walls was a luxury Lucas had bought and paid for, a barrier against the messy, unpredictable noise of the real world. His staff were part of that curated silence. They were figures in uniform who moved with quiet respect, their own lives and struggles completely invisible to him. He demanded perfection, not personality. He paid for service, not their stories. In his mind, it was all a simple transaction, no different from buying a company. He provided a salary, they provided a function. Empathy was an inefficient emotion, a weakness in the cutthroat world he ruled. He saw his employees, but he didn't see them. They were just cogs in the flawless machine of his life, and he was the cold, detached operator. Among these invisible figures was a woman named Maya. She was his maid, tasked with keeping his private wing in its pristine, untouched state. Lucas only knew her name because he saw it on the payroll. He might pass her in a hallway and give a stiff, barely perceptible nod, his mind already 3 chess moves ahead in some corporate game. He noticed the quality of her work, the dust-free surfaces, the perfectly arranged books, but he never once noticed the woman herself. He never saw the exhaustion in her eyes, hidden behind a mask of professionalism. He never saw the faint lines of worry on her forehead or wondered about the life she lived when she wasn't silently cleaning his urgent phone call she was taking. He heard her whisper, "I know, my love, but I can't leave yet. I promise I will make it up to you." He felt a quick flash of annoyance. How unprofessional. He made a mental note to have his manager remind the staff about personal calls. He judged her instantly, framing her as someone slacking off, without a single thought for who was on the other end of that line, or the aching heart behind that promise. It was a harsh judgment, made in a split second with zero information, a habit he'd perfected in the boardroom. Section 2, The Life of Maya. Maya's world was a universe away from Lucas Harding's. Her life wasn't measured in stock prices, but in bus schedules and grocery bills. She was a single mother to a bright, curious 7-year-old boy, and every single thing she did was for him. Her day began before the sun was even up, in a small, cramped apartment clear across the city. She'd make her son's breakfast, lay out his school clothes, and see him off with a kiss and a promise, the same promise Lucas had overheard and so coldly judged. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to make ends meet. The job at the Harding mansion was the most important. The pay was better than any other and gave her a little stability in a very precarious life. But that stability came at a high cost. It cost her time with her son. It cost her every ounce of energy she had. And in many ways, it cost her a piece of herself. To work in that house was to become invisible, to erase your own needs to serve the silent, imposing man who owned it. She moved through the grand, empty rooms like a ghost, her footsteps silent on the expensive rugs. She treated his belongings with a reverence he never did, the family photos Lucas never glanced at, the art he never admired. She saw the profound loneliness in the house and felt a strange, distant pity for the man who lived there. Her own life was a constant struggle, but it was also full of love. Her tiny apartment buzzed with her son's laughter, the warmth of their shared meals, a simple, deep connection that no amount of money could ever buy. The staff break room at the mansion was small and often crowded during lunch. Maya, being quiet and non-confrontational, would usually just wait, not wanting to get in anyone's way. By the time the room cleared out, her break would be almost over. So, she'd find a quiet corner outside, hidden from view, to eat the simple meal she'd packed. It was often just leftovers, but it was fuel. It was what she needed to finish her long day, to make the long journey home, and to be the mother her son needed. Then came a Tuesday afternoon when the sky just cracked open. A torrential downpour started, a violent storm that seemed to mirror the chaos Lucas was feeling inside. A multi-billion-dollar merger had hit a snag. He was pacing his massive office, barking orders into his phone, his frustration boiling over. He ended the call with a sharp click and stalked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the rain lashing against the glass. And then, he saw something. A small flicker of movement in the garden below. He squinted, annoyed. Who would be out in this weather? He expected it was a gardener who hadn't taken shelter. But as he focused, he realized it was one of the household staff. It was the maid, Maya. She was huddled against a stone wall, trying and failing to shield herself from the relentless rain. Her uniform was soaked through, clinging to her. In her hands, she held a small plastic container. As he watched, his irritation turning into a cold curiosity, she opened it. He couldn't see what was inside, but it looked like scraps. She was shivering, visibly trembling from the cold, but she began to eat, quickly and desperately, as if she was afraid of being discovered. For a moment, Lucas was frozen, not with empathy, but with disbelief and a hot surge of anger. The unprofessionalism of it all was galling. That this was happening on his property. He didn't think about why she was there. His mind, conditioned for control, just saw a disruption. A problem that needed to be fixed. He stormed out of his office, his footsteps echoing through the silent halls. He didn't even grab a coat. He burst through a side door and straight into the rain, his expensive suit instantly soaked. He marched toward her, his voice cutting through the storm. "What do you think you're doing?" he boomed, his tone as cold as the stone wall she was pressed against. Maya flinched like she'd been hit. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with pure terror. She scrambled to her feet, dropping the container. The food spilled onto the wet ground. "Mr. Harding. I'm so sorry, sir, I didn't think." She stammered, her voice barely a whisper, completely lost in fear. She bent down, her hands shaking uncontrollably, trying to gather the spilled food. "Just, get back inside," he said, his voice laced with disgust. He turned on his heel and walked back into his warm, dry fortress, leaving her shivering in the storm. Section 4, The Unraveling of a Billionaire. Lucas walked back to his office, dripping water on the perfect marble floors, a mess he knew Maya would have to clean up later. He sat in his leather chair, expecting to feel the satisfaction of restoring order. Instead, he felt nothing. And then, something else. A strange, unfamiliar feeling that coiled in his stomach. It was shame. The image of her haunted him. The terror in her eyes. The way she trembled. The sight of her meager meal, now wasted on the muddy ground. He tried to push it away, to focus on the merger, on the numbers, on the world where he was in control. But the image refused to leave. For the first time, a crack had appeared in his icy world. Why was she out there in the pouring rain? The question echoed in the quiet of his office. Why was she eating scraps, huddled like a frightened animal? He had reprimanded her with the cold authority of a CEO, not a human being. The thought was deeply unsettling. He, Lucas Harding, a master of strategy, had completely failed to see the most obvious thing in the world, a person in distress. Driven by this new, gnawing feeling, he did something he'd never done before. He opened the security app on his computer that monitored his estate. He went into the archives, to the footage from the staff areas. He watched the last few hours. He saw Maya finish her duties. He watched as she approached the break room, saw it was full, and then politely backed away. He saw her glance at the clock, a subtle panic on her face as her break ticked away. Then he watched her take her small container and slip outside, just as the rain began to fall. He kept watching. He went back days, then weeks. He saw the same quiet routine. The same tired resilience. He found the footage of her on the phone, the call he had judged so harshly. There was no sound, but now, he didn't see an employee slacking off. He saw a mother, her face etched with love and worry, talking to her child. The weight of his own ignorance crashed down on him. He felt a profound, searing guilt. He'd built his empire on knowing every single variable. Yet here, under his own roof, was a woman whose struggle he had actively chosen to ignore. He hadn't just been ignorant, he had been cruel. His demand for perfection and his complete lack of simple human curiosity had created a system of cruelty in his own home. The fortress he had built to protect himself now felt like a prison, one that had locked out not just the world, but his own humanity. The next morning, the mansion was different because Lucas was different. The storm outside had passed, but the one inside him was just beginning. He walked into his kitchen, a room he usually only passed through. Maya was there, cleaning. Her movements were stiff, nervous. She kept her head down, avoiding his eyes, no doubt expecting to be fired. "Good morning, Maya," he said. The words were quiet, but they landed like a thunderclap. Maya froze, her hand hovering over the counter. She slowly looked up, shocked and scared. In all her time there, he had never said her name so gently. "Good morning, sir," she replied, her voice cautious. "I've told the household manager that the staff kitchen is to be kept stocked with fresh food," Lucas said, not quite meeting her eyes. "And that break times are to be strictly honored. No one should ever feel they don't have a place to rest and eat. Ever." He walked away before she could respond, leaving her in stunned silence. It was a small gesture, but it was a start. Throughout the day, Lucas found himself actually seeing things. He noticed the gardeners sharing a joke. He heard the cook humming a tune. His world was slowly coming into color. Later that week, he found Maya in the library. He cleared his throat, a sound of uncharacteristic nervousness. "Maya, may I have a word?" She turned, her posture immediately deferential. "Yes, sir." He struggled for a moment, the words feeling clumsy in his mouth. "I want to apologize," he began. "For my behavior in the rain. And for more than that. For my ignorance. There's no excuse for how I acted. I was wrong." Maya just stared at him, trying to process what was happening. An apology was the last thing she ever expected. "I've been thinking," he continued, his voice gaining a bit of strength. "I haven't been a good employer. Or a good person. I want to change that. I've reviewed your file. I know you have a son. I know you work multiple jobs." He paused, taking a breath. "This isn't charity. It's a business proposition. I'm creating a new position, household manager. It comes with a significant salary increase and a schedule you can arrange around your son's needs. The role is yours, if you want it." He then mentioned her son, adding that he'd heard she was trying to save for a better school. He offered to create an educational fund for him, not as a gift, but as an investment in her family, a recognition of her incredible dedication. Conclusion: Maya was hesitant at first, her trust wasn't easily won. But as the days turned into weeks, she saw the change in Lucas was real. The cold, imposing billionaire was slowly being replaced by a man who was learning to listen, to see, and to feel. She accepted the position, and her life began to transform. She was no longer invisible. Her quiet wisdom started to breathe life back into the cold mansion. And Lucas, in turn, learned more from her resilience and grace than he had from any business deal. Seeing her devotion to her son even inspired him to start mending the broken relationships with his own family. The mansion was no longer a silent monument to wealth. It became a home. And it all started with a single moment in the pouring rain. A moment that shattered a billionaire's world, not with a crash, but with a quiet, profound awakening. It showed him that true power isn't about control or wealth, it's about connection. It's about seeing the humanity in others and, in doing so, rediscovering your own. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes, the biggest changes in our lives come from the unexpected moments that finally force us to open our eyes. CTA, if you were moved by this story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional and motivational stories that touch the heart. We'd love to know what you think in the comments below. What would you have done if you were in Lucas's shoes?